Hey explorers, this episode was brought to you by Anchor.fm. It's the distribution service that we use to get this podcast to you. And to be honest, it's great. It's free. There's tons of creation tools that let you edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. They upload it to everything, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and tons of others. You can even make money with no minimum listenership. So it's got everything you need in just one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hey, this is Toby in Post. There's a slight audio issue with this episode. I'm a wee bit loud, JT's a little bit quiet, but it's just for one episode. Enjoy.
All right, so today's session, you know what I got for you, Toby?
Don't we have to do our starting roll?
Oh, were we doing... I thought we already did the pre-roll.
We've done the pre-roll, but not the main roll.
All right, this is...
Welcome back, everyone, to Rules as Written, the D&D podcast, where we tell you the rules and how to make and break them.
As they were written.
Well, mostly. All right, so what do we got on the agenda today?
Today, we've got the environment.
The environment?
Yeah,
Okay.
should be riveting.
I love me some environment.
Yeah.
Animals.
So, the environment involves things like falling, suffocating, vision and light, and interacting with objects, food and water, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So, the first part we'll talk about is falling. Falling in the player's handbook is a pretty hand-wavy type of, like, every 10 feet that you fall, you take 1d6 bludgeoning damage to a maximum of 20d6.
I do like that it's bludgeoning.
Some
I don't know.
face damage.
Yeah. I mean, it's not going to be anything else, but it's just to really, not like full damage, just straight up bludgeon.
But, like, the weird thing about that is that, I mean, it's very linear, right? Which doesn't have...
Yeah, that is. It's not like you're picking up speed or anything.
Which is why we also have the Dungeon Master's tools, and I believe is also...
Dungeon Masters?
Oh, Xanathar's Guide. In Xanathar's Guide, we have more extended rules for falling.
Okay,
a little
sounds
bit
useful.
Fun. So, you have the same, like, every 10 feet you take 1d6, but the rate of falling has changed. So
what does that mean?
it doesn't do what you would expect it to do, actually.
Okay.
It just means that if you're in, like, a situation where you're really, really high up, right, the rules that they give is you can instantaneously descend up to 500 feet. So I guess in, like, a rule of combat, it's like one round is like 500 feet.
Ah, so your free fall is 500 feet.
You go
per
instantly
6
to terminal
Yeah,
velocity. Just
Okay.
0 to 500
Okay.
straight off the bat. So that's kind of like the extra thing that they give for, like, a regular person falling regularly at super high heights. But the second thing that they give is all about creatures that can fly and what happens to make them fall.
Okay. So how does this work?
So if a creature that can fly has its speed reduced to 0 feet,
Yeah.
so that's 0 feet per second,
Okay.
it instantly starts to fall. And it'll fall at that, like, 500
The image I've got in my head is magical.
I was thinking about, like, spells that could do this. The most funny one would definitely be hold person.
If you find a humanoid that can fly.
But they can't fly through magical means. That's the thing.
Could a crow... Is it a croaky? Koike? The raven people. I forget their names. Can they fly?
Well, if you have a race of people that can fly, I mean, that's even funnier.
If they're a humanoid,
that,
then
like,
you can just hold them and
just instantly fall.
hold them, but not hold them in place.
To their doom. That's basically the extra rules that this gives you.
Okay.
It's just for, like, flying creatures. And then that extra, like, little instant 500 feet. But I think also, like, there should be somewhere where you can get, like, a logarithmic.
Yeah, I've heard some people doing logarithmic styles, like you say. There's loads and loads of rules out there, though. Like, if you just give it a quick Google, you'll find 20 billion types of logarithmic fall damage.
Yeah, and that might make sense in the case that you have, like, that barbarian with 130 HP who just cannot die from fall damage. He can fly from unfathomable heights and stuff.
He's a cat, basically.
It's like Master Chief in Halo.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a beautiful thought. So I've got a few extra rules on full damage from Tasha's new stuff.
Yeah, let's hear
So it's really quick. It's just falling into water. You can use your reaction to make a DC 15 athletics or acrobatics check to see if you land head or feet first. On a successful check, any damage from the fall is halved.
So you still take normal damage if you fall into water?
Yeah, I mean, like real life, you must have belly flopped at some point. Fucking hurts,
I
right?
guess it depends on which way you go in. But then there's also like the kind of like diving principle where you can dive.
Well, that's what
crazy.
that's what the acrobatics and athletics is for,
Okay.
right? But as far as I'm aware, like the faster you go, water just ends up like concrete. Like bullets can only go like a foot or two below water.
Yeah,
because
but
they
it's
just
like a
shatter.
That has to be like a certain height, though, I guess. But I guess this is already dealing with those heights.
Yeah.
You have to be going pretty high up. To
Yeah, I might homebrew in a RaW where it's like, what's the when does full damage start? How far do you have to fall for full damage to kick in?
Oh, it doesn't say. It just says at the end of the fall, a creature takes 1d6
So
bludgeoning
it
damage for every 10
starts at
feet.
10 feet.
So 10 feet, it's already at 1d6.
I suppose that's just like
little ouchies.
your knees.
It's a little ouchies.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're a wizard, you got old arthritis.
Level 1 wizard can die from the lamest stuff.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I don't know. Maybe just like as you're playing, if you're the DM, just say, "Oh, you fell 30 feet into water, nothing happens."
So
And then
would
after
you-
that, you start.
Would you allow for, because in the rules as they are written, they give you no real method or way of like reducing the amount of fall damage, except for that bit in water. But, I mean, as we've seen from parkour and ninjas, that you can do kind of like a roll or something. Would you allow this kind of thing to
I think it's if you're prepared for it,
Okay.
you could do an acrobatics check.
maybe up to like a certain
Yeah, up to a certain height.
500 feet?
500 feet, but I rolled.
But a roll at the end.
How does he do it? Yeah, definitely. Up to what? 20 feet? 30 feet maybe? I think it depends how prepared you are. I think that's a really case by case thing.
Okay.
It's like if you're really prepared, if you're taking the running jump, but if you're in combat, you fall backwards off a ledge.
Yeah, then you're going.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So, a little bit before we move on, falling onto a creature. If you fall into the space of a second creature, and neither of them is tiny, so if one of you is a tiny creature, nothing happens. But the second creature must succeed on a DC 15 dexterity saving throw, or be impacted by the falling creature. And enemy damage resulting from the fall is divided evenly between those creatures.
So
Yeah.
you can cushion your fall a little bit by projectiling yourself onto an enemy or something.
Yeah, but also you're both knocked prone unless it's 2 or more sizes larger than the falling creature. So you falling is always knocked prone, the person who's falling, but whoever you fall onto, if they are 2 sizes larger than you, then they're okay. But if they're only 1, they go down.
Yeah.
That gnome is taking out that barbarian.
It's happening. Cannonballs. So the next section, suffocating. So the 2 main principles on this section seem to be that it gives you how to calculate how long you can hold your breath.
Okay.
And then it also tells you what happens after you run out of breath. Like how long do you start to die?
Okay,
And-
good things to know.
Yeah, I mean, like in real life too, right? If you could be like a David Blaine versus like, literally anyone. Like me with
Versus
asthma.
not David Blaine.
Yeah, two categories of people here. So the way to calculate that is you can hold your breath for 1 plus your Constitution modifier worth of minutes. So it
So
says
a
minimum
big old
of-
barbarian could hold his breath for like 6 minutes.
Yeah, if you really like,
If you really go
decked out
into
your
con,
Constitution
yeah.
in 6 minutes. It was almost David Blaine was like 30 minutes or something crazy.
Was he?
It's definitely real. It's definitely real.
I'm a man whose fame comes from fooling people. Here's a thing I did. All right, mate. Sure.
Yeah.
Go on.
We live in a crazy world.
What's it? He hasn't done anything in ages.
Yeah, probably he died, actually. And that it's just like his...
All I remember from David Blaine is that he had one in the UK where he was like suspended in a box, and all it was, this was like early internet, I think like late 2000s, all it was every news story was just him taking a shit in the box. Because he had like this tube that he had to poop and pee into, and just every photo of it was, went to see David Blaine, he took a shit.
It's like, I think his whole thing is that he does something that would otherwise otherwise be like a relatively boring thing for so long that it becomes impressive.
Yeah, fair enough. I sat there. I literally did nothing. All right, suffocating.
So now, yeah. So that's how long you can hold your breath. At a minimum of 30 seconds. So I guess if you have like -2 to Constitution, why would you do that? But,
Oh yeah, minuses. Damn.
and that's why that's there, I guess. So when a creature runs out of breath, then you start to choke, right? It gives you a number of rounds, right?
Okay.
And a round is like 6 seconds, right?
Yeah.
So the amount of rounds that it takes for you to drop to 0 hit points and dying is your Constitution modifier, minimum of 1 round.
Mm-hmm.
So just the flat Constitution modifier. Yeah, and then you can't regain hit points or be stabilized until you can breathe again. So you can't just like heal yourself
Out of suffocating. So when you teleport into a wall, you can't just cast cure wounds.
Indefinitely. Help.
Help. Going back, actually, I'm imagining if that 30 seconds rule wasn't there and you have your minus con and you must always be
Yes.
inhaling.
Like, yeah.
as soon as you breathe out, you'll start, oh, I'm woozy. Okay, oh, I'm
Covers your
woozy.
mouth for a half second, and that's all it takes. You're gone, baby.
Oh, God, carry on.
So I think that's the bit on suffocating. I feel like it's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Just a little mathy, but not too much.
Yeah, sounds pretty straightforward.
Yeah. The part of vision and light that we'll do
This is a thing.
is a little bit more of a thing.
Yeah.
So vision and light kind of goes into roughly 2 areas. Well, I guess
Okay.
3, right? The first is that everything's fine. You can see everything, right? In the natural
Like I
state
can
of
see you right now, and you're beautiful.
And the second one is me with like out glasses. It's lightly obscured. So they give it examples like dim light, patchy fog, moderate foliage.
Aye.
And then it says you have disadvantage on perception checks that rely on sight.
Okay, that will make sense, really.
Yeah.
So I think that works both ways, because maybe it says like foliage. Maybe there's something else that is behind foliage. That's a good thing to remember. Just because you are not obscured in foliage or something,
Right. With that,
it's your sight lines that you're checking each time.
so it only mentions perception checks, right? But I feel like that would also affect other things. Like, what about an attack? Like, if you're shooting an arrow at something that you can only, would you have to take a disadvantage on that?
That comes under cover, which we can talk about in the combat episode.
Okay. All right,
That is a whole
put a
thing.
put a
Yeah,
pin on
that
that
is a whole thing. Subscribe if you like these episodes.
So, all right, we're just talking about looking around and looking at stuff
Yeah.
in this episode. So, the
This is
other
a pacifist episode.
the pacifist episode, yeah.
Yeah.
Raw pacifist run.
So
The other one is heavily obscured. So, not obscured, which is a JT original. Lightly obscured.
we'll trademark that, so wizards can't use it. We should go through all the books.
Yeah, give them a taste of their own medicine. I'm sorry, we love you if anyone's listening at the Wizards of the
Send us free things.
We're so poor.
All right, what's the next one?
Heavily obscured. This is complete darkness, opaque fog, dense fog. It's like the same thing as the last thing, but more.
The same, but different.
Yeah, this is the Mountain Dew like jacked up version of lightly obscured. It kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
So in terms of light, they give bright light, dim light, and darkness. Bright light, you're in the not obscured. Dim light, you're in lightly obscured. Darkness, you're in heavily obscured.
Okay.
And heavily obscured means that you cannot see. So it doesn't give you anything of like, there's no perception checks that you're able to make or whatever. You're completely, it says you suffer from the blinded condition.
Yeah, so that'll be a whole thing that we'll get to in the conditions episode. But it's basically if you have a spell that says on a target you can see, you can't do that.
Yeah.
I think you can also fire arrows though into darkness with a disadvantage check.
Okay, so
That is in the combat rules.
you can still kind of, can you swing wildly, I guess?
As a barbarian, JT, you can.
Don't have to hit anything, but I'll still feel a little bit better.
Yeah, you definitely can. You can swing wildly and
So we have had a player who was able to cast a spell that requires sight with the blinded condition, and they did that by firing directly down.
Oh yeah, we did do that. That was a thing.
Yeah.
So that is a kind of good thing because they just chose themselves as the target and they know where they are.
Yeah, so that's like purely rules as written. I feel like it doesn't give you any way to do that, but that kind of makes sense.
But yeah, that totally makes sense.
Nuclear option.
I fire at me. Fireball myself.
Yeah.
Die.
Who's gonna stop me?
I'm not.
So that's like the base
I kind of group these into two categories. I group it into like active and passive. The light is very passive. It's like this whole area tends to be the same sort of light. Maybe you'll have like a dark room, but if you're in this dungeon, it's like, okay, it's all dim light. Like that's a passive condition. Whereas the active ones are, like you say, the foliage, any smoke, magical stuff, shenanigans, those kind of things. So I find it helpful to keep track of those two separately.
Okay. Do you think that like you need to communicate exactly what kind of lighting is around very often to have your players like understand that they would have like I guess they would figure it out if they try to do something and you're like, you can't really see that well.
Yeah, it's something that comes up quite naturally. Also, everyone has fucking dark vision, so it doesn't even matter.
Right, if you don't have dark vision, you're a nerd and a human.
That's basically
And not
everything
special.
has dark vision, so it barely matters within 30 feet for the most part. But we'll get onto that in a second. Is there anything else?
That's it. That's like the base that we're working with vision and light.
Okay,
So
do you want to
things
start
that-
with dark vision for the next bit?
Things that modify that include dark vision, right? So if you have dark vision, which you do, which you almost certainly do,
Definitely.
then it means that you bump up a rung on that like little hierarchy of light.
Yeah.
So if it's complete darkness, you can see as if it were dim light, and if it were dim light, you can see as if it were bright light within 60 feet of you.
It depends on the race. Different different creatures may have different things.
So it'll tell you that.
Yeah, it'll tell you.
Like how much.
Yeah.
You have like one of the cooler dark visions or one of the lesser ones. Don't matter.
If you've got, normal dark vision or little manlet dark vision.
Yeah, little manlet dark vision. I thought it was almost always 60 feet, but I guess.
Yeah,
it's
it is. I've just seen some creatures that have 30 feet, or sometimes even less dark vision.
Yeah.
don't-
One
yeah.
interesting thing from this though is the color, how it affects color.
Yeah, it's all in grey.
Yeah, I didn't realize that actually.
So fuck your colour puzzles.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, right? So I guess that doesn't come up very often, but maybe it might be useful when somebody's trying to like tail somebody at night and they're trying to like recognize them.
That's
Maybe
a
the
really
grayscale
good thing
would
I
be-
haven't thought of. Yeah, if you're trying to work out what kind of, I don't know, city gang they're part of or something, like you can't see any of their colours. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Or if you like need to steal a certain gem from someone's jewelry and it's
Oh
like,
crap, and they all look
shit.
like dogs now.
Now I know how dogs feel.
Finally, you are enlightened.
So what's the next one?
We can talk about blind sight. So if you have blind sight, that's kind of like, they give examples of creatures like bats that have echolocation, or they say oozes. I've never encountered an ooze.
Have you not?
Is it like
They
the
are classic.
square
There's lots of
gelatin?
oozes. There's lots of. One of the demon lords is an ooze.
No
One of the
way.
top demon lords
Does he have
is
a
an
monologue
actual
that he's
ooze.
able to give you, or is it just
No,
like-
it's just.
yeah, roleplay that.
I think he lives on the same level of the abyss as the fungus demon lord that I showed you the picture of. That absolutely horrifying
the most
woman.
cursed looking.
Yeah, and they live on the same plane, so legit,
they
it's just
avoid
a
it.
plane.
They
Yeah,
avoid it.
it's just like nope, don't go there.
Yeah, I'll drive through that plane, thank you. No
Roll up the windows.
So that's blind sight, and what they say in the rules is that it's not affected by these kinds of conditions, which kind of makes sense.
Yeah, so basically, if you can see without seeing.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, if you can see with your ooze vision.
I can't believe I've never thrown oozes at you before. They're such a classic.
Yeah, are we giving you some ideas now?
Definitely. You'll go into the
'Cause,
jello
like,
room.
like, it's so jarring imagining, like, because everything else that you find in D&D are like creatures, right? They're like things with limbs, like
yeah.
it's like stuff that like maybe you can even talk to these things. And ooze is just so jarringly like a
To be fair, I just don't think I use them too much. There's things like, what is it, a gibbering mouther. This is one that I was just came across. I mean, I knew it. It's a classic one. It's from
like
first
an insult
edition.
that you would call somebody at a bar.
It's basically this eldritch horror, which is just mouths and like black, red, fleshy goo kind of thing, and it walks by biting the ground and
that's horrifying.
Yeah, it's awful. I'll show you some pictures after.
I mean, that's more in like the realm of like a Lovecraftian horror type of thing.
Yeah.
And ooze is just like a 70s dinner party. It's just like something
Fucking
you left in
aspec.
your...
It's aspec. I forget aspec was a thing.
What is aspec?
Aspec is the worst food. Basically, it's just jelly, a savory jelly. I'm British, so we call it jelly, jello.
Oh yeah.
Not jam. It's a savory thing that it was very fashionable to suspend things in.
Yeah.
Sometimes it would be fruit. Sometimes, horror of horrors, it would be meat.
Yeah, you put like
And
a
you
whole
would-
turkey leg.
Yeah, literally, yes. People would do this. It was horrific. You Google, and then it has the name aspec. All I think of with aspec is either arsenic or asbestos. Nothing good
Both
begins
of
with
those will
those.
probably be more delicious.
Exactly. All right, for the love of God, let's move on.
All right, so that's blind sight. The last one in the vision category will be true sight. So, true sight is more like a creature who can see, but they can see the most see of all.
Yeah, they can just see. That is like opening your third eye, isn't it? Kind of deal.
Yeah, so they can see through magical darkness, invisible creatures and objects, automatically detect visual illusions and succeed on saving throws against them, and perceives the original form of a shapeshifter or a creature that is transformed by magic.
So basically, if you're an illusionist wizard, you're fucked.
Yeah, exactly, right?
I see through everything.
Yeah, I'm the darkness guy. Well, shit.
Yeah, that's all kind of makes sense. That's pretty straightforward, isn't it?
But you told me before that true sight is relatively rare.
Yeah, true sight is pretty rare.
And I kind of see that because it feels like a lot of your stuff would rely on being able to change the environment in this way. It feels
Yeah,
like
it's really kind of like when the DM's really annoyed that you're all right. Take this then. None of your stuff works anymore.
Yeah, you got a polymorphing druid who keeps turning into flies. None of that.
All right, what we got next?
Okay, so food and water. You need both. So this is basically how long can you go without one thing until you die?
Sounds reasonable.
Or I guess take
So
levels of
far.
exhaustion.
Yeah, those are horrific. We'll get to those in the status.
Yeah, so the numbers that they give you are kind of wonky. We were talking about it before, and it is a little weird. Like, not exactly what you'd expect. So you need at least 1 pound of food per day.
Christ.
That's like the baseline.
So basically, a
Hungry
pound
Boy.
cake.
Yes.
No, that's a pound of each ingredient, isn't it?
I have no idea.
1 pound of food a day.
Maybe you need a pound.
That's
of
not actually that
pound
much.
cake. I guess that's fine.
Yeah?
The food part maybe sounds like 1 pound of food.
Yeah, so a pound is like just under half a kilogram.
Yeah, for our European friends out there.
Fuck off. For the rest of the world friends out
Yeah,
there.
well, they give pounds in D&D, and that's the official unit of measure.
Yeah, that makes. I eat a pound of food.
Yeah.
Easy. That feels quite light for adventurers.
Maybe a little bit on the light side, especially if you have that, like, you know, however many hundreds of pounds Goliath.
Yeah.
Like,
and you're like
maybe-
trekking through wilderness?
They don't give you any extra rules for, like, how much you're doing in that day either.
Yeah, fair enough.
But-
That'll make sense.
Once you start reaching like half a pound of food per day, then that counts as half a day's worth of food. And that'll all amount to how long can you go without food. So you can go without food for a number of days equal to 3 plus your constitution modifier, minimum of 1. So for those -3 constitution, please
They
don't.
exist. You must constantly be eating. You got to be hooked up to a KFC drip line.
No, it's
just
like-
oil into your
It's just
veins.
sliding out the other end at the same time. It's just one, like, exceedingly efficient machine.
You are a tube.
But that's the number, so if you start having half rations, then they start counting against your...
Okay, so you can prolong the inevitable.
Yeah.
Like you can half the time, basically.
Unless you eat less than half. Then if you eat less than half, you automatically get a level of exhaustion at the end of the day.
Okay.
So,
Level of exhaustion is horrible.
that's...
How do you get rid of that level of exhaustion? Just eating again?
Yep. The second you start eating, you're back to normal days. But...
Oh my god, why didn't they tell you that at survival training? As soon as you spend 1 day eating a pound of food, you are right as rain.
This one also gives you the modifier of you can't magic your way out of it either. So you can only remove this exhaustion once you've eaten food.
Okay, cool.
And the same applies to water. Mm-hmm. So this is the part where it's like, you need a gallon of water per day.
A gallon.
1 gallon.
That's how many? That's like 4 liters, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
So that's
big boy pack.
We can both eat on this because that's like one of those normal family bottles of Coke is 2 liters, even in the US.
Well,
right?
if you ever go to the gym, I know some of you guys are out there doing your body good, you'll see at least like one dude with those
with a gallon jug,
milk jugs of water.
Fuck, a gallon of water every day.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I guess if you're running all day, but you don't need more food.
The thing is, they do give you, if it's hot, I mean, they don't say anything about physical exertion, but if it's hot, you need double that.
2 gallons of water a day. You'll just become a fountain at that point. Just lay down and fucking Christ.
D&D wants to make sure that you are hydrated.
2 gallons! Is that crazy? Listeners, write in. Tell me, that sounds insane.
For just gonna start writing to us.
Like if you are really into water and stuff.
Find out that we're actually the weird ones and that like everyone else is like
everyone else.
Just dehydrating ourselves. We look like 2 raisins. So haven't seen our
Oh, that's I'm here sipping. I've got like my 400 milliliter glass and I'm like, quenching. Little do I know, I'm going to die.
You need to start chugging that soon. Because if you have the same rules kind of as the food.
Yeah.
If you have half of that, then if you have half of that, you have to succeed on a DC 15 Constitution saving throw.
Oh, so you get a chance to save it.
Yeah, it gives you like, and it's every day though. So whereas food, it's like, this is how many days you can go, and that's up to your Constitution modifier. Mm-hmm. With water, it's like every day you have to be making your DC 15 con save.
I mean, that means you could like theoretically go forever without water.
That is one of the weird consequences, because it doesn't go up.
Does it not increase?
It does say, though, that if you have access to even less water, so less than half of a gallon.
Oh, is that so if you've got half a gallon?
So if you have half a gallon.
Okay, that makes sense.
So you can go forever on
Yeah, you're just drinking your own piss at that point.
Yeah, if you're on like your shipwrecked style,
Okay, that makes sense. If you have less?
If you have less, then you automatically get 1 level of exhaustion.
Okay, that makes sense. So you'll die in like 5-6 days.
Well, even faster, because if you already have 1 or more levels of exhaustion, you take 2 levels of exhaustion the next day.
Yikes. So yeah, that's 3 days. That's the classic, isn't it? 3 minutes without air, 3 days without water.
Yeah, such as D&D.
3 weeks without food.
Sure, it's probably exact.
Oh no, it's like 3 hours without water, 3 days without food.
Wait, 3 hours without water?
It's like if you do that, it's not like you die after 3 hours, but it's like your body starts making you weaker and your chances of survival go
3
down.
hours?
I think. Yeah, something like that. Okay. I could be wrong, but it does go up like minutes, because 3 minutes, you can't go 3 hours without air. So it definitely starts in minutes.
It's always 3.
And it is always 3, and I thought they just went up in like those steps. I'll look at it after.
Hey all, future Toby here. Past Toby was chatting utter bollocks. Turns out it's 3 minutes without air, 3 hours without shelter, 3 days without water, and 3 weeks without food. Alright, back to the show.
Alright, so anything else to touch on before we
Those are all the
call it a day?
previous subjects for today. The last bit, they give you a bit called interacting with objects that I would rather rename how to break stuff.
Okay.
It basically just gives you a set of examples on like what happens when you interact with certain things.
Yeah.
But the only rules that it introduces are the fact that objects can have armor classes, and your DM determines what kind of armor class there is. There's probably lookup tables.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
And once it reaches 0 hit points, so it also has an amount of hit points, then it breaks.
Simple enough.
Yeah.
And on that note, that's all we've got for the environment episode.
And like a deflating balloon, you finish the last bit.
All right, so that's it for today, I guess. We'll catch you guys in the next one.
Yeah, join us next episode for social interaction. Maybe.
God. I feel like that's going to be a mini-series.
Unless we decide something different.
All right, we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.